And he's got the recording. So, oh, the only thing left is show captions. That's good. And Nick will deal with recording.
I got recording, Tom.
You're all set.
And everything's open below as well. So this is the host reaching out. Bill, would you like to join as a panelist? I'll send you an invite to do that.
Hold it, Nick was talking to Bill. Yeah, Nick was talking to Bill.
Oh yeah, no, it's okay. Bill's joined now. Just want to make sure he could talk when he needs to.
Is my point.
Ms. Harper, are we recording?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening. It is March 7th. It's about 5:30 p.m. Welcome to the City Council meeting. I'm Barb Noseworthy, your mayor, and we will start with a roll call, please.
Councillor Baxter. Councillor Bosman's.
Present.
Councillor Buell.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Youssef.
Here.
Mayor Noseworthy.
Present. Thank you. Do we have the translator?
Yes, Mayor, we have Diego Pons and Diana Ruiz.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Diego Ponce here with the Community Language Cooperative again, joined by my colleague Diana Reese. Thank you as always for having us at your meeting. The organizers of the meeting continue making a commitment towards language justice. So this just means that we continue being here to help create a space for people to participate and engage in the language of their heart, just simply the language that you feel most comfortable in. We'll continue using simultaneous interpretation here to help create the space in English and in Spanish on Zoom. And once I finish saying this in English, I'll repeat the message in Spanish. At that moment, we start the interpretation. When interpretation is on, you'll be able to see that globe icon that says interpretation right there on the bottom right-hand corner of your computer screen. We'll ask you to please select that globe icon and please select your preferred language. If you're on a cell phone or your tablet, you'll instead be looking for the More button or the 3 dots button in order to select your preferred language that way. So if you're not fully bilingual, as always, we'll encourage you to select your preferred language so you may utilize the interpretation when someone's speaking in the opposite language. If you're bilingual, then just feel free to listen to everyone in the original language. As always, we like to remind all people, please pay attention to the speed in which you're speaking. Just please make sure that you're speaking at a conversational pace, and please make sure that you're not pick up your reading speed. So thank you for that. Buenas tardes a todos y a todas. Mi nombre es Diego Pons. Estoy aquí hoy con mi colega Diana Ruiz, de parte de la Cooperativa Comunitaria de la Justicia del Lenguaje, CLC. Como siempre, gracias por invitarnos hoy a su reunión. Los organizadores de esta reunión se continúan comprometiéndose a servir la justicia del lenguaje. Lo que eso significa es que queremos continuar creando un espacio para que todos puedan participar e involucrarse en el idioma de su corazón, simplemente el idioma en el que todas las personas se sientan más cómodas. Vamos a continuar hoy utilizando la interpretación simultánea aquí en Zoom para poder crear esa espacio en inglés y en español. Cuando yo termine de decir esto, se va a activar la interpretación. Ya cuando está activada la interpretación, usted va a poder ver un icono de un globo de la Tierra que dirá interpretación allá abajo en la derecha de su pantalla. Yo le voy a pedir que por favor seleccione ese icono del globo terráqueo y por favor seleccione su idioma preferido. Pero si usted está asistiendo hoy a esta reunión en su celular o en su tableta, le vamos a pedir que por favor busque la opción que dice More, que quiere decir más, o posiblemente el botón de 3 puntos, para que usted pueda seleccionar su idioma preferido de esa manera. Si usted no es completamente bilingüe, le vamos a aconsejar a que por favor seleccione su idioma preferido para que pueda utilizar la interpretación cuando alguien está hablando en el otro idioma. Pero si usted sí es bilingüe, entonces se puede sentir hoy de escuchar a todos en su idioma original. Y como siempre, cuando usted seleccione su idioma, puede hacer clic en silenciar el audio original para no escuchar ambos idiomas al mismo tiempo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Diego and Diana. I'm going to start this meeting, as I have every city council that I've been the mayor presiding over, with a land acknowledgement. This is my land acknowledgement. It does not reflect a statement of council or other individual councilors. Thank you. For thousands of years, this region was home to numerous people, bands, tribes, and nations. Each had their distinct culture, artistic expression, and community mores. In particular, this region was the ancestral home of the Nuchu, Dene, Hopi, multiple Apache bands, and various other tribes and Latinx people who used and stewarded this land. I recognize that Indigenous peoples were forcibly removed from their ancestral lands by the U.S. government. And it is important to recognize that the narrative of this region has mostly been told from the dominant perspective without recognition of those who came before us and who to this day continue to thrive, create, and connect with this land. Thank you for your respect in my acknowledging this legacy. We will get started. First of all, Council, is there any actual or perceived conflict of interest on any agenda item? Great. Then we have no proclamations tonight or presentations. I'm correct. Just want to make sure there's nothing changed. Then we will move to public participation. This section of the agenda is set aside for the public to provide comments or ask questions regarding items that are not scheduled for a hearing or public testimony or that do not otherwise appear on this agenda. City Council will not respond to questions from the dais, and citizens should address their comments directly to the City Council. As this is a hybrid meeting, the avenues for public participation have been adjusted. All written comments received by the City Clerk by noon today have been delivered to Council and will be summarized in the meeting minutes. And I like to add that I make a point to read those that come in after noon, and I have done so again today. What I will say is that we will start with anyone who signed up for public comment who is physically in City Hall, and then we will move to anyone who is participating virtually who has raised their hand. The moderator will put a clock, a timepiece up on the screen, and it'll have a 3-minute countdown on it. At about 30 seconds, I will try to just wave my hand to the speaker so that you know you have about 30 seconds to wind down. If it exceeds much by the 3 minutes, I'm afraid I will have to interrupt you, and I don't like to have to do that if I don't have to. So let me get started. I need my glasses again. Let's see. So this is the only list, right? Let me just check. So the first person we have on the list is Lee Meggs.
Mayor Noseworthy, councilors, Manager Madrigal. My name is Lee Meggs. I am come here today as a former mayor in Durango circa 2010. And I have a statement to read. 16 former mayors of Durango are concerned about the proposed reorganization and restructuring of the Durango boards and commissions. How each board or commission is continued, changed, or eliminated on behalf of residents is neither a simple matter nor a city staff decision. Durango has a long and rich tradition of boards and commissions that contribute to self-governance, citizen engagement, policy creation, and advisory input. While local government efficiency, budget impacts, and city staff time are important, these considerations should be secondary to engagement of Durango City residents, contributions of volunteer expertise, and the leverage of local talent and ideas, all of which align with the goals of engaged and collaborative governance stated in the 2022 City of Durango Strategic Plan. The City of Durango has been a home rule city since 1912, and the city charter has stood the test of time. Accordingly, Durango's boards and commissions reflect our city's commitment to citizen engagement, self-governance, and problem solving by residents and interested citizens. Boards and commissions are a critical part of our self-governance. Who is driving the train in the reorganization and restructuring of boards and commissions? Did the City Council receive a petition from citizens or a recommendation from existing boards and commissions? Perhaps the council should take a step back and rethink its position. If council is to consolidate, eliminate, or create new boards and commissions, then what are the primary objectives beyond saving money, reducing staff time, or reducing citizen participation? What is the rush? Why are we in a hurry to make such major changes in how we are self-governed as a home rule city in Colorado? Are, quote, too many boards and commissions, in quote, really a problem or rather a virtue? As former elected City of Durango officials who have served on Durango boards and commissions, the 16 of us urge the City Council to take the necessary input from the citizens of Durango and allow time for discussion and coordination with city staff to implement what is best for our city. Our boards and commissions are an important part of successful city government. The City Council should seek more input from businesses, nonprofits, interested citizens, and community members. Simply put, decisions of this magnitude require citizen input and time for discussion after the new City Council is seated in April 2023. Making sweeping changes of reorganization and restructuring should not occur without citizen input and feedback from the boards and commissions. Changes driven primarily by administrative considerations rather than local home rule, governance policy, and active citizen engagement are unacceptable. Thank you very much. I have a copy of a memo that has been prepared and signed by the 16, and there is also a shortened version which should also be made public, which I've read from. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Next, we have Dick White.
City Council, City Manager, City Clerk. It's interesting being back here. My name is Dick White. My address is 575 East 8th Street. I'll follow up on the remarks that Lee Meggs just read by adding the names of the former mayors who have endorsed the letter she presented. Dean Brookie, Joe Colgan, Amos Cordova, John Gamble, Dale Garland, Lee Goddard, Fred Klatt, Sweetie Marbury, Lee Meggs, Christina Rinderly, Michael Rendon, Jim Shepard, Leonel Silva, Jasper Welsh, Dick White, and Sidney Zink. In addition, I want to add a few remarks on my own experiences with boards and commissions as a city council liaison. What struck me particularly was the expertise contributed by our boards and commissions volunteers, and the institutional memory preserved by long-serving members. And I can name a couple: Ed Zink on the Natural Lands Advisory Board, and Bob Wolf on what was the Water Commission and Utilities Commission, now the Infrastructure Advisory Board. Knowing the character of the board members As a counselor, I found little to question on recommendations that came to our advisory boards, from our advisory boards. I also became aware of the long and dedicated service by such community icons as Dwayne Smith and Fred Krager. Their contributions fulfill the vision of participatory citizen engagement and in our city government.
Thank you, Dick. Next on the list, we'll have Sweetie Marbury.
My name is Sweetie Marbury. I've been a resident of Durango for almost 50 years, and I'm speaking as a former mayor of Durango. I'm here to address the loss of public participation by the eliminations of boards and commissions. Public participation is the foundation and the key to a successful city government. The boards give citizens a voice, from expanding the Animas Trail to e-bikes. Mayor Noseworthy, your email to me today stated, the last council directed the staff in February and in 2019 to evaluate the current systems and recommend changes. So when were the public meetings held to discuss eliminating crucial boards? And why wasn't there citizen input to this monumental structural change? Where are the minutes, Mayor Noseworthy, from the boards and commissions with their input? The answer is it didn't happen. Democracy cries out for a chance to speak. By eliminating boards and commissions, this council will strangle the voice of our residents. I ask why. For many, it will be seen as arrogant, uncalled for, and unacceptable by residents. 16 mayors with more years of service than your council recognize your proposal as just wrong for our home rule city. If you vote to eliminate boards and commissions by May, you will lose the trust of residents. I'm asking 3 councilors to stop, to rethink this proposal. Gather input from boards and commissions and interested citizens through public engagement. Don't take any action. Don't jump off the cliff. And please don't use the word transparent because it sounds very shallow after I listen to members of the Multimodal Board and Parks and Rec speak about being blindsided with the news of eliminating their boards. Boards and commissions act as an advisory capacity on projects and a filter for city council. For example, I'm going next week to the Multimodal Board. And if it was eliminated, Mayor Youssef, I would be right here at the podium speaking to you about my concerns instead of going to a multimodal meeting. Durango City residents love public engagement, and it's reflected in our Home Rule Charter of 1912. Problem solving with boards and commissions has been a part of the fabric of Durango for decades in our city government. Why do you want to eliminate public participation? Your answers are really not acceptable in the democracy where I live in the wonderful town of Durango.
Thank you, Sweetie. The next person to speak will be Dean Brookie.
Thank you, members of council, Mayor Noseworthy. My name is Dean Brookie, 970 East 4th Avenue, Durango. I am also one of at least 16 former mayors who adamantly disagree with any wholesale abandonment of our boards and commissions. That array of boards and commissions on which caring and informed citizens act as advisors to the council. In addition to the events described here earlier tonight, or the merits described here earlier tonight, I wanted to remind council, staff, and the general public that the boards hold the institutional knowledge, the history that spans multiple councils and maintains the long-term vision. So as councils come and go, those boards and many of those board members hold that institutional knowledge that takes us forward into a variety of regimes. If council decides to alter that course, then that board can advise council on how to meet those new goals of council. And with the turnover in leadership and staff we've had in the past 4 years, I think this is ultimately really critical at this point in history more than any time prior. Additionally, in my opinion, and what I witnessed, I believe, the relationship between certain boards and council was compromised 4 years ago when ex parte communication between certain individual board members and certain new city councilors became prevalent. And there was a lot of communication directly from those board members to council members. And today's mess is particularly a direct result of that unfortunate pattern of behavior. I would like to take this moment in time to thank Councilors Baxter and Noseworthy for your contribution to the governance of our community for the past 4 years. It was 2 of which I had an honor to join you at the podium and was thankful to serve with you. But lastly, I would hope that you postpone any decision on this matter until the new council is duly elected and seated, and slightly 1 month from today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. The next speaker is Harrison Went.
Hello, Mayor Noseworthy, Councilor, City Manager, and City Clerk. I'm here today. I'm going to start off on a little bit of a lighter note and just thank the city and City Council for all the work that we've been putting in towards our housing initiatives. And I personally see a huge improvement, and I am really happy as a Durango resident to see this. I do want to, in the matter of time, saving some time, echo a little bit of what we've heard people say about the boards and commissions. I would urge the city council to reevaluate this decision and wait until the new council is seated to make this choice. The democracy is key to local governance and governing in general. And these boards and commissions are a wonderful way for community engagement where people don't necessarily want to engage. City governing is not really exciting. It takes a lot of, you all must be really weird if you show up today because it's not the most exciting thing. But I think any way that we can get people to show up and to show out for our city is important. And I think these boards and commissions are a really, really important way forward. I would just ask the council to reconsider and maybe wait until the new board is, or the new council is set. Thank you.
Thank you, Harrison. Has anyone who might have come in late wished to speak, to sign up to speak, who's in the physically in the audience? Okay. Could the host let us know, please, if anyone virtually has raised their hand?
No, Mayor, no one has indicated that they'd like to speak.
Very good. Then we will move on. I thank the public for their participation. Appreciate hearing your thoughts and concerns. We will next move to operational update. City Manager, I believe we're going to look at curbside composting service. Where is Monique? I believe. Marty, you're going to provide the introduction. Sorry.
And along with the Monique and Taylor, the co-owners of Table to Farm Compost. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Oh, yeah. So I'll pull it up. City share. Oop, don't want to rename it. And Table Farm Compost. Great. Oh, shoot. Can I ask if we could move to another item? I think this is still open. Oh, no, it's showing up right now. Sorry, I thought it's probably still open on my computer on the network. And so I thought I was.
Let's see how it goes. And if we need to take a pause, we can do that.
I think this is the version, so it should be fine. And I will share on Zoom. All right, that should be good. And if it's okay with council, I'll invite Monique and Taylor up to the podium as well to co-present on this item.
Please join us, please.
All right. Good afternoon, Council and Mayor Noseworthy. My name is Marty Poole. I'm the Sustainability Manager for the City of Durango, and I will let Monique Taylor introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Monique DeGiorgio, co-owner of Table to Farm Compost.
Hello, I'm Taylor Hansen, also co-owner of Table to Farm Compost.
And our goal here is to give you a quick update on the progress of the City of Durango and Table to Farm's public-private partnership, and lay some foundational information for the upcoming study session presentation that's slated for early May. So composting and citywide composting obviously aligns with environmental and sustainability and resilience strategic plan goals. We're looking at providing efficient city services and protecting our natural environment and natural resources. Composting specifically provides nutrients to our soil for local agriculture and gardeners, and prevents methane emissions associated with organic disposal of material in landfills. So if you compost that material, you avoid those methane emissions, which are potent greenhouse gases. So a little bit of quick background. The city in the summer of 2021 issued a request for proposals for a public-private partnership, also known as a P3, for citywide composting services. Table to Farm was one of the submissions for that and was selected. The city, for the past year and a half, City and Table to Farm have engaged in that partnership, and the city has supported through outreach and education and engagement, and Table to Farm has been providing those services currently through an opt-in model at $28 a month for residential services and varying prices for commercial services. And one of the things we'd like to highlight today with this operational update is some results from our recently completed phase 1 of our market study, which was supported by a Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment grant, and really gave us some very valuable insights into what consumer and public perceptions and experiences with their composting service. And for this next part, I'll hand it over to Monique and Taylor to give a little bit deeper of a background on Table to Farm's growth and experience over the past 5+ years of providing composting to our community.
Thanks, Marty. Yes, I think as many of you know, I've had many hats in the community that I've worn, and I took on the Table to Farm compost hat. Gosh, almost 5 years ago now. It's starting to show, literally when David Golden, who had started the business, was moving away. And I felt so strongly that this particular service in our community just had to stay alive. So I literally took on the second job. I was working for Local First at the time, and I found somebody to drive around the neighborhood. She was from Florida. She actually had never driven a truck and trailer in her whole life. She hadn't seen snow. We made it work. And it was a testament to the 110 customers at that time who would have been devastated if the service had been stopped. And there was a bit of a rumor that, it was going away, and everybody was so excited that we were able to continue the business. So we made it work. And about 2 years later, we were up to 300 customers. And I was feeling kind of busy at the time. And that's when my business partner, Taylor Hansen, found me and said, "Hey, what can I do to help?" And so then the next 2 years, we grew to about 500 to 600 customers, which, just to pause to say, for a community of our size to have a curbside compost service that's also creating compost for farmers in Durango is pretty cool. I mean, the rest of the community here and in the state of Colorado look at us as a model of how to do it right, quite frankly. And so that's great. So we feel really fortunate to be able to do that. Fast forward to 2023, we spent the last 2 years permitting a Class 3 compost facility. That's a really big deal. I just want to take a minute, not to brag, but we're kind of glad it's done, to explain what that means. So that's permitted by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. There's only 16 in the state. The last time one was permitted was 5 years ago. The individual who worked with us, who's a gem, said, yeah, I'm kind of not busy anymore because it's so hard to do this. Nobody else is doing it. We're permitted as a landfill, but we're basically farmers of microbial life, right? So we have gone through a very high regulatory threshold. It's about $500,000 of investment, not to mention everything else that we've done to get it going. And we did basically a simultaneous Class 2 La Plata County commercial permit, same time. So on the very lovely day in December, when the Board of County Commissioners approved our site, they had to do 2 permits at the same time. Basically a certificate of designation and a Class 2 facility. So we just got up and running last December. And I bring that up because we're poised, thanks to this partnership, now that we have this facility, to really take it to the next level. And just as a quick reminder, in addition to all the food scraps we take to make compost, you need carbon too, right? So we're basically permitted at 18,000 cubic yards to bring in the area's nitrogen, food scraps, and carbon. That can be yard waste, that can be wildfire mitigation. So I'll hand it to Taylor to tell you a little bit more.
Okay, I'm going to talk about our long-term regional waste management planning. Cost and permitting. Monique kind of just elaborated on, it's taken us a long time to get to this point. We've worked hard to increase education around composting, and the climate benefits of soil health are tremendous. And I think we've learned through interfacing with other partners in the state. Monique is the co-chair of the Colorado Compost Council, just how impactful compost can be. So I was gonna provide an example. The first of its kind in the world, this is called the Orca plant. It's in Iceland. It's a $15 to $20 million plant. So it's capitally intensive. It sequesters carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. It pulls about 4,000 metric tons a year out of the atmosphere. Community-wide composting, if we get to full-scale community-wide composting, and this includes metrics for diverting the ability of the soil to also pull not just the carbon dioxide methane equivalent, it's up to about 26,000 metric tons of diverted carbon dioxide equivalent. So you can see it's like a 6 times multiplier. And I share that example because it's a $15 to $20 million plan. It's the first of its kind in the world. Food scrap legislation is really impactful. It's coming. California, it's mandatory and complicated, but we want to be ahead of the curve, and it's really important, and it's a service we really believe in. We're environmentalists at heart, and I think that's really our passion. The economic value brought to the region, we've received lots of grants now, 2 through the Colorado Department of Health and Environment, 1 through the US, the Forest Service, the Colorado Forest Service, excuse me, Colorado Department of Agriculture, and then we have a pending USDA grant through the federal government. In addition to being capitally leveraged, we're really trying to expand our rural communities' ability to provide compost service here in Southwest Colorado. And I'm going to kick it off to Monique with the community benefits.
I was just going to make one more point. And I think Taylor was making the point of this Orca investment at 15 to 20 million. And here we are doing something even more impactful in the community. And just a quick note on the community benefits. So one of the things that we hear, probably in the fall and the spring more, almost daily from Durango residents is, what do I do with my yard waste? Right now, it's going to the landfill. We have a permitted facility. We can take that with the grants that Taylor has mentioned. We'll be able to buy about $2 million in equipment to chip that yard waste. So there are all of these tangential, very important benefits that we can provide to city residents. Wildfire mitigation. I have it going on behind my house at 1354 East 3rd. those piles, instead of going up in smoke, could come to our facility. And I'll just end because we were going to say the mission, because we love our mission of Table to Farm Compost, and I forgot, which is to recycle organic waste into compost and save the planet. And we take it really seriously. We're growing food at the same time. So thank you for this partnership. It's been very valuable for our community.
All right. Thank you both for that, sharing some of those updates. And I'll finish this presentation with a quick status update on the market study. So again, this was funded through CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment grant. And it supplemented the cost to provide 3 free months service to folks that were interested in trying out Table to Farm service. But we had a huge amount of interest. So 300 signups, just for perspective, that's approximately 5% of all utility accounts. And so, for a community of our size, that's a lot of opt-in interest. We have some quick survey. These may be a little hard to read, but from folks' expectations of the service, it either met expectations or it was easier and easier to engage with than they expected. And then, how did they develop the habit? Folks jumped right into it. So yes, this is a new habit that people have to develop, and these folks were opting into the service, but they were ready to jump on board very quickly. And then at the same time, we have to acknowledge that as an opt-in service at $28 a month, folks are saying, at the end of this free service, did they want to continue? And some folks were saying, actually, that cost is a barrier, or how we're thinking about that cost. So some important takeaways from that survey. And that survey results, along with some more detailed updates from Table to Farm, will be the focus of May 2nd study session. And so, if we have this vision of landfill waste, diverting organic waste from our landfill to improve soil health in our community, to reduce gas emissions, there's a lot of nitty gritty to figure out in terms of what the city's role is in that process. So what should the next phase of involvement look like? What are these legal and administrative steps? Some of the financial considerations. And so what other information does council need? And so closing, we're happy to answer questions right now, but also would invite any written questions to come to me, and we can also share with Monique and Taylor as appropriate. We'll get those questions from council and put together the answers so we can come to May prepared to really dive into that discussion. And with that, we'll open it up to questions at the moment. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm going to open up for questions to council, but first let me say to Taylor and Monique how entrepreneurial. I thought, here they are, pun intended, a scrappy group making everything come together and taking on now, becoming, over $4 million in funding on a very short period. So I think you're the spirit of Durango in that scrappy entrepreneurial way to make things happen for the betterment of our community. So a huge thank you, just a very huge thank you for doing that. And Marty, also, isn't this a great commitment, a part of the city's effort to our sustainability and our resilience in the community? So I want to acknowledge your work as well. Let me open up to questions, though, from council.
And if it's okay with council, we may kind of give the floor to whoever is the most appropriate person to answer that. Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. Is that me?
One moment. We're getting some feedback for the host.
Yeah, Bill, if you could mute your mic.
Thanks.
Thought it was. Sorry.
Did that say that 37% aren't going to continue of the people that opted in? Is that what that? No, sorry.
No, it's a little less than half have chosen not to continue from the market study to continuing their service at this time.
But half are continuing?
By half are choosing to continue.
It's kind of, I mean,
More, over half, actually,
Right.
given the
That's
latest.
so
yeah.
impressive. Did you ask the question how much people would be willing to pay? Okay, yes. And what is that number? Do we know about what that number is?
Yeah, so we asked that question in a couple kind of tricky ways to try and avoid folks' bias. But essentially, it's coming in around $15 a month is what people both say they would be willing to pay and what they think others would be willing to pay.
So like half of what, essentially almost what you guys charge.
Roughly half, yeah. And that's tricky because, I mean, the costs that go into providing that service are substantial and somewhat fixed. So, and I think diving into some of those, you can answer some of those questions now, but we're looking forward to diving into
Yes,
those.
no, and I was
Yeah.
just more thinking of things I could tell you or ask now that you could, gather and have ready and to be answered. And then I would be interested at the meeting, not right now, like other communities nationwide that partner with government or municipalities and how they offset those costs and then what that looks like. Because obviously, the city does trash and recycling, but there's other cities that even in Colorado that, subcontract that service out too. And so just examples, I think would be great to see and how it works. Yeah, thank you. That's all I think I have at the moment.
Yeah, I just want to thank you as well. I'm not sure if you know, but I do environmental work and I think me and many other people, value the environment and sustainability. And I think it's great that you provide that service to whoever is willing to sign up. I'm not one of them. I do my composting myself, but it's good. Appreciate it.
I wanted to thank you as well. Did I miss it? How much was the CD, the grant that allowed us to do the 3 months of free? And then the second part of that question is, do we think more of that type of funding might be available going forward?
First off, we always say for anybody that's composting at home and not with our service, well done, that the goal is to really divert organics. So however you do that is great. The grant from CDPHU is actually our third, which is pretty amazing. And it's $119,000 to basically pay for up to about 500 customers to have 3 months of free. Free is a tricky word. I'd say service provided by the state of Colorado, which is pretty cool. And then the question in terms of additional funding, Taylor and I are finding that what we are doing as a community, and I will say we, in terms of diverting organics from the landfill and not creating methane and growing food instead, okay, no brainer, is becoming so relevant that we just keep seeing more and more funding. Now, a partnership is going to be key to bringing those dollars in. I can tell you right now that if there's a meaningful relationship, we can bring the dollars in. What does that look like? I think at the study session would be a great time to talk about it.
Great. I'd look forward to more of that discussion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you again for your time. And we'll leave it to the next item.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have the 2022 annual report update of the Durango Police Department. I know Chief Bramer is coming up. Any introductory remarks?
No, Mayor. I think this one's pretty good. Doesn't need an introduction.
Chief Bramer, while you're pulling that up, may I talk once again today about the Peace Officer Award ceremony?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you so much. Let's see, it was Friday, was it the 24th? It was a Friday in February.
Yes.
And you had the Peace Officer Award ceremony, which also included 911, the communications, and there was representation from the fire department as well. And I just wanted for the community to be aware of this. It took place on a Friday night. Awards were given out for a variety of measures, including service and going beyond the call of duty. But the one that probably moved me the most was the description of the different officers who saved people's lives. And in some cases, they even had the body camera video, which was extremely moving to see that and to see the way the police officers were so calm and compassionate in their efforts, and in some cases, not always successful. So I just wanted to call that out for you. And as you're preparing to give your remarks, just to acknowledge all of those people that were received awards and those remaining on your team. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. On that note and that introduction, I do have the video that we prepared for that evening as a recap of 2022. I thought it would be fitting to play that before I give the annual report for 2022, because it kind of sets the stage for what engagement and how committed the police department is to our community and how we're tied in. So I'd like to play this about 5 minutes, and I hope everybody enjoys. Oh, John. So it worked earlier today. There it is. Well, thank you. As you can see, our agency is very committed to this community, and it's a gracious community. I really love this community, and I know that we feel that every day when we're out there interacting with the community as a whole. And that is the most important thing I think that a police agency can have, is that relationship and that trust amongst them. So thank the council for all their support that they provided us over the years, because that actually lends to that credibility that we have out there with the agent, with the organization. And we very much appreciate that. So thank you. How do we get to the next? Right. Yep. Thanks, sir. Okay, so good evening. This is the 2022 annual report. I'm just a kind of a high level synopsis of what that report is. I did provide in your packet the entire report. That report can also be found on our webpage at the police department, if any of the public would like to view that. I got it. Overall, our Part 1 crimes for the 2022 were down. Part 1 crimes are classified by the FBI as major crimes, and this is how they measure crime across the United States. So those are going to be murder, sex assault, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft, and arson. And we're real proud of this, but this graph here shows a 5-year average, but we are averaging back to our 2017, 18, and almost 19 numbers within that area. And that's quite the achievement, because right now across the nation, crimes are up, and in this state, crimes are up. And so we've seen that increase in Part 1 crimes as a whole. But here in Durango, we've actually been able to drive those numbers down through specific efforts that we've focused upon in order to make that happen. Some of those areas that we did see that in was going to be our, like I said, Part 1 crimes are down, but burglary, that was a major effort that we did this year. There was several people that were out there that were kind of almost like a racketeering aspect of it. But in our coordination and our partnerships with La Plata County and the rest of our detectives, we were able to focus in on that. We were able to clear a multitude crimes. Those people are still in custody at this time, so they're not able to go out there and continue to reoffend within the community as a whole. Our theft went down by 10%. That was something that we knew we could influence, because a lot of that comes from retail theft, which is, again, is another major problem across the country right now. But what we did is we focused in on specific areas using our data. So that was going to be like Home Depot, Walmart, Albertsons, Town Plaza, and the central business district as a whole. And then we also have a fluctuating hotspot. And with those hotspots, they're dedicated patrols where the officers have to go there for X amount of time per day, per shift, and they have to get out of their cars, and they have to go in there and they have to interact with people. And a lot of times when it is a store, they actually have these conversations with the loss prevention people, the managers, the other people that are working there, and they partner in order to figure out a way to drive down some of that reported crime that's there. Another aspect of what we did there is we came up with police services technicians. It was a program we did a couple of years ago to civilianize some of our police staff. That gave us the ability for those technicians to go out, and they actually work with the staff at these different facilities out there, and they collect cold crimes. And then we're able to bring that cold information in through video, surveillance, and other components to help identify who those are. Then we have a detective that's specifically working those cases. Where before it was kind of a gap because it didn't really necessarily rise to the level of detective, and it was too much work for a patrol officer to handle. So again, a way to be more efficient and effective with our staff that we currently have. Auto theft was our major success this year, and something we really tried to celebrate. 15% decrease. Colorado is the #1 state in the union right now for auto theft. So we've seen a lot of increase across the state. We were actually able to drive those numbers down. And as the mayor continues to help us out with their public service announcements, lock your cars, take your keys inside, because most of our crime that's dealing with auto theft comes from people that they're just leaving their keys in their car and unlocked. So it's preventable. And so we can do better, and we can continue to drive those numbers down as well. We've had a lot of success with our traffic accidents this year. We've had focused efforts on different areas of town to analyze our data again, to see if what influences we can do with contributing factors to the attribute towards auto or towards crashes. So red lights, speeding, such like that. So we've worked some specific campaigns there, plus some educational components of that as well, just to get out there and network more through our social media sites to just give that awareness aspect of it. And all that is great, but what you have to look at is our growth in the city continues to grow. And we measure that a lot of times by how many dispatch calls are coming in. And so we were actually able to drive down crime while our dispatch calls went up. And when dispatch calls go up, there's nothing we can do to control that, because that's people calling because they have need. And the next category is officer initiated calls. Those also went up, and that's attributed to our staffing levels. Because when we have more staff, we're able to distribute that workload out, and they're going to be able to focus more on proactive activities. Even though we are increasing based off of the reactive aspect of it, which is the radio calls that are coming in. So that's a good measure for us to be able to see that we're dropping our crime levels, even though our call levels are going up, and we're continuing to work with the city manager's office in order to increase our staffing levels to meet those demands as well. And as I'd mentioned in the study session earlier, our in-custody arrests have decreased by 16%. So we're listening to what the national trends are and what the state conversations are. And we're saying, okay, do we need to be incarcerating people on the front end on trial type confinements, or should we be focusing our efforts on something else? And so we're favoring in-custody or non-custodial arrests, as you can see, by 25%, and we're arresting less people, and we're still actually able to drive some of our crime down. Now, we know we can do better, and we know we can continue to focus our efforts and shift our focus and work with our partners through the judicial system to see if we can't make even more improvements than that based off of that. But not everybody needs to go to jail to be held accountable for their actions. So, and that kind of highlights that as well. Some other department notables that we're looking at is we track all of our types of crimes. We report to the state, to the FBI every year, bias motivated crimes. We looked at those again, and we track those every year. And so we had 8 reported incidents this year. And we were able to make 3 arrests out of those. There was a couple of those that either there was no probable cause for an arrest to begin with. It was just a claim. We were able to take a look at that and investigate it through, or we were not able to identify who the suspect was with those bias motivated aspects. Use of force and show of force, we have to report that. We did see a significant increase this year. We went from 36 last year to 44 in 2022. As we evaluated that to see why we had such an uptick, it comes down to the legislative changes that came through the state. And so now we are required, it's much more stringent. We have to report more than we used to before. So in the past, if I was carrying my baton and I took it out of the ring, now that's a show of force. Where in the past, it wouldn't be unless I actually acted like I was going to deploy that baton. Same thing with like a firearm. If I pulled my pistol out a couple of years ago and I held it low ready and I did not actually point it at somebody, that would not be a show of force. But now anytime it comes out of a holster, it's going to be a show of force, and we have to report that. So that's why we're seeing some of that. So there should be a taper off and a stabilization of those numbers once we get used to figuring out what exactly reporting requirements we're going to have. And those should set the norm for the future. But we do investigate every single use of force and every single show of force, and to make sure it's within policy and that nothing has been violated. Detective statistics, we went through those. Again, we report this. We compared those to the state clearance rates, and we're seeing that's one of our key performance indicators, and we're seeing a higher clearance rate than what the state averages are. And so it's a better metric for us, and that's how we're kind of balancing that. As a whole, to see if we're being successful. Training, this is exciting. We dedicated over 7,000 hours of training to our officers and our professional staff again this year. That shows the commitment and the effort that we do to make sure that our officers are equipped with the most knowledgeable information that's out there, and they're up to speed on all the modern tactics and ideas and that. And so we're continuing to develop that, and that's a real important aspect of staying professional and staying up front. And then lastly, our internal affairs statistics. We had 30 incidents that we investigated this year. 20 of those were generated from citizen complaints. We just concluded our citizen complaint review panel last week. So that's where the citizens actually go through every single packet, every single citizen complaint for the year, and they review our process and provide feedback back to us. And I believe Mayor Youssef, you were on it this year, and Mayor knows whether you were on it last year, to be able to see that process, to be able to provide that information to the public as well. I'm looking forward to seeing the results of this year's to see what improvements we can do. And then 10 of those were internally generated. So those were complaints that we found ourselves that we investigated. Are there any questions?
Council?
Just say thank you for the presentation and looking good at the numbers. So appreciate it, the whole team.
Thank you, sir.
I'll echo, thank you very much. It was lots of good information. I don't know if you want to touch base. Not everyone can listen to the study sessions, I think, because it's so early, but maybe some of the suggestions you're bringing to council in order to hopefully help these numbers continue to come down. I think that might be a great add for some of the people listening.
Okay, outstanding. Thank you for the suggestion. So the earlier study session was in regards to municipal court process. And what we're looking at is working with our partnership with all the components of municipal court to be able to take our local issues that are driven as I guess community concerns that are tailored to the specifics of Durango to work through as a problem-solving court in order to mitigate some of the recidivism that we're seeing within the community. And so this is a great topic. We had great discussion. And I think there's going to be some significant improvements moving forward to help drive those numbers down too, to also keep people out of the criminal justice system as a whole, is our goal.
Thank you. I thought today's study session went great and there was lots of great recommendations brought forward by you and your team. And I look forward to the future.
I wanted to thank you as well. Yeah, serving on the Citizen Complaint Review Panel was a very interesting experience. And I do think it's great for us to rotate as a council because you learn a lot. And you learn a lot about how hard you work as a team for the community and for the individuals of the community to ensure safety for everybody. And I really, really appreciated participating in that. I was just going to ask just a couple of questions. How many officers do we have now and how many vacant positions?
We're staffed for 57 officers right now. And right now we have 58 because we had one start yesterday.
Oh, great.
So we've overhired just a little bit. And that's a fantastic thing right now.
That is amazing.
Especially with, the national crisis right now to find certified police officers. The investment that the council's allowed us to do to, find people in our community to invest in the academy. And then it's helping, it's paying off. We're starting to see that. And I think that's also attributing to our statistics as well, because the people that are here care about this community. So they actually work harder because they're invested into it.
That is such great news. That is the first time I've heard that since I've served, I think, that we've actually filled our positions. And I do think that's a testament to your leadership and your team. Just one more question, and it's mostly about you. How long have you now been serving with the police department in the city of Durango?
It'll be 18 years in November.
Okay. And how long as chief?
If you count the interim time, 4 years, but if not, it'll be 4 years in April.
Thank you so much for your work and efforts. Thank you.
Chief Bramer, a huge thank you to you and your team, and we appreciate this update. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the Coordinating Council on Homelessness Reorganization Proposal Update. Luke, I know you're coming up, but I also see a couple of folks in the audience, and I do want to give just a thank you as you're pulling that up to the folks with Neighbors in Need Alliance and with also Community Compassion Outreach. Have I missed any other group that's in the audience? Thank you for the service that you provide to the unhoused community and others in need in our community. So I want to give just a public thank you to both individuals and your organizations you represent. Thank you.
Hello, council, mayor. Thank you so much for having me up here tonight. It's a Coordinating Council on Homeless Reorganization Proposal Update. Financial excellence and high-performing government, enhanced livability and sense of place. Tonight, we're going to do an update on the Coordinating Council on Homelessness, moving to a continuum of care, or COC, coordinating entry system model. Lots and lots of acronyms. I'll say them out loud every single time. So here's a quick timeline. The Coordinating Council on Homeless started in July 2021. It was part of the City-County Strategic Plan on Homelessness. Then just last November, City Council in a study session gave direction to the Coordinating Council on Homelessness to draft a proposal of a continuum of care model and then take the direction implementation of the strategic plan on homelessness to that model. And so now in January and February, the Coordinating Council on Homelessness agreed to halt meetings to focus on direct delivery of services, a point in time count, and a coordinating council proposal. Not included in there is they've also been doing some really good work in grant pooling opportunities. And now we're here with our Coordinating Council Homeless update on the continuum of care model. So the county and through Chuck Stevens and the city through Jose Madrigal, city manager, received a funding request and a draft job description for a coordinated entry system manager for the city and county. That's actually been seen by the county since I put this in. So that's just rearing through, and the city will see that next. And included in it is description of the COC model, coordinated care model, which is over a coordinated entry system. The good news about that is the coordination of care, continuum of care model already exists. Throughout Colorado, throughout the nation, people are doing that. It's a state model. I'll go over. Currently, Housing Solutions of the Southwest is the point of contact in overseeing the continuum of care model. So Continuum of Care 101, what is that? Well, the Colorado Balance of State Continuum of Care was established all the way back in 2000, and it's mainly focused on helping rural communities in applying for funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. It serves through permanent housing, transitional housing, rapid rehousing, supportive services, and homeless management information system projects, all of which are continually happening in Durango, some of which already through a COC lens. Now, the entry system streamlines housing services, so the homelessness, and you'll recognize this, is rare, brief, and non-recurring. And each region has a coordinated care entry system. So it's something that already exists, and it's something that CCH members, Coordinating Council on Homelessness members, a lot of crossover already. So that's why brought back in November, the idea was to move to that because it's such a lateral move. And as I said, Housing Solutions for the Southwest region would be the lead, moving from MANA being the lead of the Coordinating Council on Homelessness. So if this was funded, the job they estimate could be filled in about 1 to 3 months, be a $50,000 annual salary, and they would look for grant funding for years 24, 25, so that they could find a way to make it self-sustaining. Now, when I asked, what would it take to move to Coordinating Council on Homeless to a coordinated entrance system and get a committee formed so that we would have point of contacts, that could be determined largely in a single meeting. So many people are already on it. And I will say, they did the January pit count, which I was lucky enough to be a part of, and they're already collaborating in coordination with not just big initiatives like that, but day-to-day care. And as I said, most organizations that were on the Coordinating Council on Homelessness already fall under the continuum of care. The other discussion is, what about people with lived experience? And they would have a method for, membership of people with lived experience, as they did on the Coordinating Council on Homelessness. And this is the big change, is the coordinating entry system would not take over implementation and direction of the La Plata County Durango City Strategic Plan on Homelessness. They would focus on direct care, which fills many, but not all the current strategic plan goals. And they would present within 6 months on formation to discuss successes, gaps, and future opportunities. And, at that time, what is and isn't being met by the strategic plan and what could be done by city or county to help could be discussed at that time. So that's a lot of information very quickly, and it's pretty broad. Of course, a lot more detail can be provided when that funding comes before you directly by, MANA, who's put that in there, and Ann Morse, who's director of MANA. But I can take whatever questions, and what I can't answer could, of course, be directed for that next meeting.
Questions of Luke?
When did you say that next meeting will be?
Jose, was that already scheduled, or is that still yet to be scheduled for the funding request for that specific position?
That would be next council.
That's what I thought. I'm not crazy. Okay. Well, I am, but not based on that.
Luke, are you seeking funding from the joint sales tax?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the request.
So then it would need to also go to the county commissioners and the city council
The
meeting.
county already was approved, probably, I don't know if that's the right word to use, but they've given their consent to use joint sales tax for it. So what's just left is for the council to do so. Oh, we thought it would be a good idea to go ahead and just have this presentation first, so that as you saw that request coming, you could see how it was tied together instead of kind of having them at the same time, but it will be on the second meeting of March.
So thank you for your presentation, and your energy is always electric when you come in here. I adore it. Okay. So with this switch, it would, the COC, is that the right acronym?
Continuum of care, it's a coordinated entry system
Okay.
under a continuum of care.
It would take care of permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, rapid rehab, like the kind of the housing aspect of it. Is that right?
So absolutely, those funds are available through that model, but what can and will be done under this, that would be something that would come up in that 6-month update. What's currently being done by the strategic plan, what gaps are being met, where they see opportunities, where they see, need outside support for fulfilling those.
But they're not going to be responsible for the strategic plan on homelessness.
Not under this current proposal.
Okay.
Correct.
So would that be on hold until we see where the gaps are, or would MANA or the Coordinating Council on Homelessness continue on?
So the Coordinating Council on Homelessness would not continue on this model. It
Be
would
done.
transition and be done. And so with this proposal, for at least a 6-month period, there would be no organization directly overseeing implementation or development of the strategic plan. Now, a lot of those are already taken care of as we saw in the last strategic plan update. The big piece that is not would be, of course, a managed community, either temporary or permanent, safe parking, either temporary or permanent, or measures like that. Those would currently not have a lead agency responsible for directing how that would be implemented, at least in that interim period, unless they got new direction for council or county. And, being a, continuum of care, it's a different model. So how that would be enacted, would be up for future discussion. And, as it was with the previous, soon to be previous, if this goes through, Coordinating Council on Homelessness, it was so new, it was still being discovered. Who's doing what was the conversation that kept being had. So it seems like that conversation is continuing.
So I guess it's so broad. This is so broad, and
Incredibly.
So I have there's like lots of questions, but I'm assuming that maybe what I guess I want to know when the funding request comes through and that presentation happens is how we have so many amazing resources with
Yes.
MANA and NINA and all these entities that have been working towards this, and how would the continuum of care work with all those agencies? Like, how does that work?
And some of that is answered directly in the proposal.
Okay.
And draft job description that was provided, that they could go over in more detail. So, once you see that, you could have questions formed on that, and they could go for more detail from that. But yes, those are questions that, we didn't get into here, since that was going to be a focus of that proposal.
And I'm like, you have shown so much passion since you've gotten on board, and I'm sure you guys have all reviewed this and seen it. And so I trust that you're bringing us good information. It's very broad, and I'm, just a little confused. That's all. Sorry.
I thank you for the presentation. I'm very happy to see that continuum of care program or process take place. But I also acknowledge the gap that it addresses the people that are willing to move into housing in a certain format. And that doesn't address the people that travelers and I assume that's correct, but please correct me if I'm wrong. So travelers and the people that just don't want to stay in housing and want to camp, and the cars that you mentioned. So I hope we will work on that, because it's been going on for.
That was an excellent comment you made at the last coordinating council on homeless meeting that we had. And, and as I said in that response, some of the continued efforts by the community do address, mitigation of the harmful actions that can happen to travelers or temporary, residents of our community. But they don't provide long-term solutions for that. Exactly correct. And so where we go for that way and how we solve that is certainly a large and looming question that I hope will have large community and council support, but that's going to be a continuing conversation. You're exactly right. Our current strategic plan does not address a permanent solution for that portion of, the unhoused population.
Yeah, and maybe a little comment. I'm not sure if you saw the study session, but I was really surprised to learn that some of the people that have their tents along Rusa actually have housing.
Yep. No, I saw that study session. Yeah. And yep, I did. I try to watch every one of those that covers that issue. And and that's something that the unhoused cross-functional team discussed, as that developed, and it's something that's been watched. And it's one of those things that, the unhoused situation is just such a broad continuum that it's going to take a whole community solutions. And we talked about this when we came in November about how it's a national problem, it's a state problem, it's a county problem, it's a local problem, and it's going to require the combined efforts of all of them to really get it in a way that it has manageable solutions that are ethical and humane for our community.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all.
To piggyback off of that real quick, in the study session we just had, also, not solving, there's a lot of solutions that we need to find in terms of mental health and other that will hopefully help the numbers we just heard from the chief of police, come down. And so I think that just making sure that all of the entities that are already here helping are still a part of the equation. So thank you.
Luke, thank you. And I also do want to give a shout out to all those members of the Coordinating Council on Homelessness and the work they've put into this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, do you have one operational update to provide with Allison Baker, just to an effort for the community that kind of came up in regards to potholes? So just want to let the community know we are aware of the situation and a little bit of a plan of how we are addressing it.
Potholes. We want to hear about potholes.
There's only one.
Only one pothole?
It just shows up in a lot of places.
Screen share.
I need to get to the presentation. Just, this is just potholes. We'll get here. Now, was yours link?
Go to the video?
Yes. Is there a better way? Oops. Okay. Great. Courtesy of Josh. Volume.
Hi. You have licensing issues on Instagram. You have
I said our group is typically more rock and roll than Barry White, but that's.
Yeah, you surprised me, Allison. I would have never put that for you.
Off guard, but that was Josh's selection. So we've got, let's just look at the video briefly, and then I'll go back. This is our streets crew doing some spray patch, pave pothole repairs. And I wanted to let everybody know that we really jumped onto this week. The crew got 169 potholes filled on Monday. And as of noon today, they've done another 120. In addition, they placed 2 tons of UPM, which is basically a cold mix asphalt that comes in bags and is workable during cold weather cold temperatures that we can't use hot mix from a batch plant. So it's not our ideal material, but it gets the potholes filled for now till May 28th, when the batch plants open up again and we can get asphalt. We'll continue with this work. We've had some flooding issues going on around town in localized areas that were basically our large mountains of snow melting quickly over the weekend. And we're also responding to those with trucks, loaders, getting the snow moved out. It's just a cleanup process now. I think we've passed the worst of the snow. If there are any questions or specific areas, we're keeping an eye on C-Click Fix and responding to those items. Anybody who has a complaint or an issue in a particular location, obviously sometimes they send emails, we have phone calls, and whenever we hear about them, and get them on a list, and we're responding as quickly as possible. It was a wild year, and I think we're be doing some cleanup, a lot of sweeping. We had a lot of chips down on the road for safety. So the next few weeks will be devoted to road cleanup, and then we'll move into spring cleanup with our trash pickups.
So Allison, I just want to tell you, thank you, and then thank your team, the streets team, kind of transitioning from snow plowing and the long hours are putting into that, and automatically jumping on to the potholes. And I remember I was just talking with her this week. I'm like, do you have a plan for the potholes? And I was like, we're already on it. And I'm like, that's awesome. Let's make sure that we publicize that to the community to let them know that they're out there. We know that they're out there, and we are working on it. So thank you, Allison, and thank you to your streets team.
And Allison, just a personal thank you. I have seen the emails coming in and then getting forwarded to you. And then I'm hearing feedback from the community about your responses. So thank you for that customer service mentality. And I also thank the city manager for really inspiring that sense of can do. Thank you. I believe we are on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is intended to allow the city council by a single motion to approve matters that are considered routine or non-controversial. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests an item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Items removed from the consent agenda will be considered under agenda item 9. May we have a reading of the consent agenda, please?
8.1 is approval of minutes of the City Council regular meeting on February 7th, 2023. 8.2 is approval of minutes of the City Council study session held on February 21st, 2023. 8.3 is approval of minutes of the City Council regular meeting held on February 21st, 2023. And 8.4 is approval of minutes of the City Council special meeting held on February 27th, 2023. 8.5, 6, and 7 are final approval of ordinances. 8.5 is final approval of ordinance 2023-02, authorizing a ground lease with Roots and Wings Aviation LLC for aircraft hangar T5 at the airport and declaring an effective date. 8.6 is final approval of ordinance 2023-03, authorizing a ground lease with Thomas Phelps for airport hangar 1334 at the airport and declaring an effective date. And 8.7 is final approval of ordinance 2023-04, revising chapter 3 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Durango related to alcoholic beverages, specifically regarding local approval of takeout and delivery permits.
Does any counselor have any item to remove from the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Please call the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Youssef?
Yes.
Councilor Beal?
Yes.
Councilor Baxter? Councilor Bosman's?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Mayor Noseworthy?
Yes, thank you. There are no public hearings tonight. We will go to the introduction of ordinances, and Interim City Attorney Bill Tuthill, are you available to address item 12.1?
I am. Title 12.1 is an ordinance approving an easement for the La Plata Electric
That is an
Association.
introduction of the ordinance approving an easement for La Plata Electric Association for installation of an electric utility line to service the Durango La Plata County Airport.
This would be ordinance number 202305.
Any questions related to this ordinance? Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
I'll move to approve ordinance O-2023-05.
I'll second.
And any discussion? Please call the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Youssef,
Yes.
Counselor Buell,
Yes.
Counselor Baxter, Counselor Bosman's,
Yes.
and Mayor Noseworthy.
Yes, thank you. The next item is item 13, general business items. And I believe we may be calling on staff as well for this. It's a discussion and possible action to authorize an intergovernmental agreement with La Plata County for cost sharing of construction cost for reconstruction of County Roads 250 and 251. But I'll ask the city manager if there's anything he'd like to add prior to staff discussion.
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Allison, take it away.
Thank you. I'm Allison Baker, Public Works Director.
Yes, perfect.
Great. So, this is a project that has been in the works for several years. And tonight we'd like to go ahead and propose an intergovernmental agreement for consideration by City Council. We've discussed this in joint council and commissioner meetings with La Plata County. I'm going to provide an overview of the proposed 250, 251 intergovernmental agreement and the funding partnership between City of Durango and La Plata County. And follow up with OM providing a project status update. La Plata County and the city have jointly funded development of design and a full construction plan set. The city is currently completing acquisition of needed right of ways and easements to initiate and complete construction. The county has agreed to budget $3.5 million for 2023 construction of this project and provide support to the city for annexation of the roads. The city has budgeted for 2023 construction of this project. Staff anticipates being ready to go to bid at the end of March 2023. County funding will be transferred to the city at contract agreement. The city will manage the project construction and administration. A copy of the proposed intergovernmental agreement describing these provisions that I've just listed is included in your agenda package. It's fairly brief and easy to access. Do we have any questions on the IGA itself?
Okay. Any questions from the IGA that was in the materials?
Right. We'll move on to the.
Excuse me, before we have the present, just from a point of order, you're going to give us the presentation, but at some point you need action to authorize this agreement.
Yes, and at the end of this presentation, we come to a recommended motion.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all right? Thanks. Let me introduce, I'm sorry. Owen Talmadge, who is a CIP project manager. Owen has been involved with this project for years, prior to CIP being established, when he was working as an engineering technician with our engineering division. So he's got great background on this and has been really instrumental in moving it forward.
Thanks, Allison. Yeah, and Allison said, we are getting ready to put this out to bid and then construction, so we thought it would be helpful to provide just a quick update on the project. So thanks for your time on that. As a reminder, the project we're talking about starts at Holly Avenue. It heads east along County Road 251 to the intersection with Metz Lane, and then south on County Road 250 towards Florida Road. We have 3 project tasks that we're currently working on. That's the acquisition of easements and right-of-way, the design updates, and developing the bid documents. Our transportation project manager, Barney Bunker, is taking this one on, and he's currently working on that task. We are about 80% complete on our acquisitions of the easements and right-of-way. And that's the projects, or excuse me, the properties are either closed or in closing. There were a few property owners who declined our offers for easements. And as such, we're working with the design engineers to come up with some construction solutions so that we don't encroach on their properties. Now, to get into a little more detail on that, the easements we were requesting were for some fill slopes to make up the grade between the existing property and the new road elevation. And so in order to keep all the road improvements in the existing right-of-way, we're looking at putting in a short retaining wall and likely a guardrail along a small segment of the road. Now, the wall and guardrail are obviously more expensive than just a fill slope. But as we all know, land is not cheap either. And so we expect the costs of these additional improvements to be completely offset by the money that we otherwise would have paid the property owners for the easements. So a few other design aspects that we're wrapping up after discussions with some property owners, with the multimodal board, and with DFPD include the addition of a fire hydrant, some additional safety aspects, pedestrian connectivity, and some driveway and access improvements to try to help a few properties get set up for future business development. As all those parts come together, we hope to get the project out to bid this month in March, which would lead us to awarding the contract in May. And if everything comes as we expect it, construction could start in June this year. And the scope and size of this project, it's almost inevitable that we'll have a winter shutdown. And then that would then lead to substantial completion sometime in spring or early summer of 2024. Thank you.
Are there any questions on the project update?
Council? Before we open it up, I do want to just give a shout out, Owen and Allison. I listened to your presentations to different boards about this project. I went back and listened to them. And I just want to say how I appreciated the thoughtfulness and responsiveness you were to the questions raised and ideas, but also maintaining the integrity of a project as well. So I wanted to recognize that. I did go back. It was a 2-hour meeting, at least one of them was, and I appreciated your professional demeanor. Thank you.
Thanks for saying.
I just want to thank you for all your hard work on this project. It's been a long road, and I'm super excited for the improvements. I drive this road every day. And so I'm excited for all the access and the improvements. So thank you.
I had a little question. Thank you for the update. I'm trying to look for it. I didn't know we were going to go into the project itself, but do you remember we had 2 designs on the road, and the alternate design was chosen for the cross section of the road? It was discussed during the county meeting and during the city meeting. The drawing that you just showed, was that the initial or the alternate?
I know it was the one that was selected and that has been incorporated in design drawings. Do you recall the history? I'd have to go back and check.
Yeah, I believe, again, not to try to get too deep into it, but I believe, yeah, there was an alternative road section which involved a different sort of configuration of the bike lanes with the shared use path. And that was included and has been included in the construction plans as what is called an add alternative.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a discussion with the contractor who's bidding on it. If they can find a way to do this in a very cost savings and effective manner, we'll work with them to select that option.
Okay,
But,
so,
yeah.
so the bid that is going out is for the, not the design that was selected, the alternate design that was selected, but for the initial design.
Let's just call it the standard design.
Yeah.
Is the original road configuration with the 10-foot shared use path and the 2 bike lanes. And there is an alternative section built in there as what we would call an option, might be another way to put it, where we took out one of those bike lanes and added it to the
Shared bike, yeah,
shared use
because it
path.
was vertically separated, and I think that was one of the key issues for the multimodal advisory board. And so I'm just wondering how that works.
It's, so can I,
Yeah, I'm gonna
real
jump
quick,
into it.
just like, it's like common in construction. So for example, when library, they wanted add alternates, like give us this cost for this, give us this cost for this. And so it's included in the plans and documents they're saying, but if we can't afford it because it doesn't fit in the budget, because it's too much money, then they'll come back to us and say, hey, we either have to appropriate more money than we did, city and county, or we do it for this cost and this plan. Does that make sense what they're saying?
I hear what you're saying, but it was my understanding that the multimodal advisory board supported that one, and we had discussions and it was supported the alternate design. So, but I don't want to go into the details.
But I want to say something as well about that.
Okay, I was gonna say you are correct, but the statement we made at that time is we would include it as an add-alt. So that we could analyze it with cost, pros and cons, safety, multiple items at the time that we get the bid response. So it is included.
Okay,
And
thank you.
I would like to add, I did listen to that meeting twice, 2 hours each time. And I think it's very important to realize that Allison and her team talked about the safety of the entire community and that design, and why the original design may not meet what multimodal would like to see, but it does accomplish things like if there's an emergency, there's an opportunity for vehicles to pull over and make room for ambulances. And when it's your friend having the heart attack, 6 seconds matter. And we talked about a roundabout, and the board asked, well, why can't, how do we know that 6 seconds counts? When has it ever been an issue for 6 seconds? And I can say that the police and the fire department can probably say that time matters. So I'd like to also add that it was also discussed that you have to balance many things, not just the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists, and you do try to do that, but also the needs of the fire district, ambulances, there are other conditions that come into play here. So I did want to recognize that there were several departments in that represented in that meeting. And I recognize that the multimodal board would like to see something different, but I also recognize that you have, in this case, the larger issue of the protection of all of the city to keep in mind, rather than just promoting one aspect of the city. So thank you. Is there a motion?
Can I just add?
Oh,
Oh, and I can do it
please.
later, but
No,
I just wanted
please.
to thank you guys as well for the presentation. To me, this is just such a great thing to see coming to fruition after years and years, of we're talking about this with the county. And so I think it's a really great example of the collaborative work we're doing together. And I'm very happy how we've worked it out financially, and I think we will all benefit as a community. This is really a heavily used area. you said one thing that definitely perked my ears. You said the roads will be closed for the winter. Will they keep it open from Holly to Florida?
No, I said, the project itself will go into a shutdown.
Oh,
There
okay.
could inevitably be some form of traffic control set up where there might be a small portion that's closed. We would certainly work with the contractor to try to get it to a state where it was serviceable for plows, emergency.
Okay,
residents
good.
Throughout the winter, yeah.
Thank you.
It's just difficult, as we saw this winter to do. road
Yeah.
Construction when it's.
Okay, so it's just closed, meaning you shut down the project for winter, but roads not, and I'm sure there might be times where there's going to be some closure. But we do have that other way around, at least for part of it with Holly to Florida, correct?
Yeah, there'll be some significant disruptions and inconveniences. There's no way around that, but yeah, we'll work with them on all their traffic control plans and detours and trying to minimize that. We've got the project phased so that it's not just one giant closure the whole time.
And I know there's a lot of different people that weigh in on their desires for what they want the road to look like, but I'm sure I'm very glad that to have, your, professional engineers looking at us and giving us good recommendations for this. So thank you.
I will make a motion. I move that City Council approve the execution of the intergovernmental agreement between the city and La Plata County to jointly fund County Roads 250 and 251 reconstruction.
I'll second. Any discussion? Please call the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Youssef,
Yes.
Counselor Buell,
Yes.
Counselor Baxter, Counselor Bosman's.
Yes.
Mayor Noseworthy.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for your work. All right, we will go into reports and liaison reports and actions. I see we have the library on here, the Creative Economy Commission. That's what's on mine. I will add the IAB. I participated in that meeting, and we may have missed others that need to be brought forward.
I was going to do a very brief library advisory board meeting update. And I just wanted to let you guys may or may not have listened to the February 22nd Board of County Commissioner discussion regarding a potential library district. So I just wanted to kind of talk just generally about that process and the steps around that process. So step number one, which is what we've been doing, is determining and assessing the need for a district, which what we have been doing through the public advisory group, through the survey and input gathering from community members. After that, the county has to initiate any library district process if it were to proceed forward by notifying the public. Once notice is given, there's a public hearing from each government unit to allow the community to provide input. The process involves a petition, which must be signed by at least 100 registered voters. If the petition is found to be valid, they hold a public hearing, and then the county would have to take action to proceed forth with any ballot. And all of this, the county assessor's office could provide mill rate options, and this would be due by July 1st. So I just wanted to keep you guys up to date that there is an effort underway now to gather members for a possible issues committee to aid in this process. The library staff is coordinating with Commissioner Clyde Church and Bill Lemire, the Library District Board President, and Luke, our Library Executive Director, will present about this in much more detail at the March 21st study session for us. So if there are any questions from counselors in the interim, feel free to reach out to Luke prior to the study session, but we'll get a lot more details there.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Counselor Buell.
Yes. So I had the Creative Economy Commission meeting on February. We reviewed the lodger's tax applications for round 1 of 2023. We had 50 applications for a request of $1.4 million in funds. 19 different project types. So ranging from, sculptures that are permanent to murals, to events, to, all sorts of things. The largest request was for $140,000. The smallest request was for $3,500. We only have $272,000 available in the first round of funding. And again, 1.4 million was requested. So it was very difficult because almost every project is amazing and would bring something to the community. We had a review committee spend 25 hours reviewing and putting the proposed list together for the Creative Economy Commission to consider. And so it ended up going out to 23 different arts and culture organizations and individuals were selected. 3 permanent pieces will be put in place. I'm gonna pull up just in case. Yeah, so that was, we voted. There was a couple little changes we made, but overall we went with the recommendations of the people that put in all those hours reviewing all of those applications. And then we are also working with people that put in applications that we think are great projects, but maybe they just needed a little bit of tweaking or a little bit of guidance. And so the DCD is doing a ton of that work, which is great, and helping them revise their applications. So that partnership between the Durango Creative District and the CEC is fantastic. We're going to have a retreat in, I think, April for the CEC. And then, yeah, that was all for that one. I did go to the CAS Legislative Conference last week, March 2nd. As we're in legislation session right now. And so they brought up a bunch of different potential legislative pushes that are happening right now. Governor Polis came and had lunch with us and talked about the upcoming housing bill that's going to be presented. He did give us kind of some confidence that he knows what works in one community isn't going to work for all communities. And so they're working on the ins and outs of that. So I think that we were heard during our last meeting, which was great. He mentioned in that housing policy that it's going to be a nexus of housing, healthcare, economic development, sustainability, transit, kind of all incorporated, that you can't have a housing policy standalone. And so it's great that he's seen all of that. Let's see what else. We talked about property value and the crazy increase in property value that we're seeing. Statewide, it's up 26%, but in small communities like ours, upwards of 60%. And so there's going to be a state commercial relief bill that's hopefully going to come through to help the burden of small businesses, especially. They're still kind of working on, in homeowner individual stuff, but they did a big economic update, talking about employment, income for Q4, and how we beat expectations, which was great last year, but we're still, looking at, consumption expenditures are up, income's up, but savings is down. And so anyways, we talked about a bunch of that. I'm trying to give you the general overview. There was I talked a little bit about there was a motor vehicle theft bill that's gonna potentially come out, and there's big support behind that. Childcare, huge issue. So and actually CML was there, and they talked about a bunch of the ones that they were standing behind. And they don't typically get involved with childcare, but this one's a big one, and they are standing behind that one. Homeowners insurance, underinsurance. That was one too. Anyways, there was one to keep in mind about trails and being ADA accessible, and making all trails that the city municipalities fully ADA compliant. So we're working on keeping an eye on that one, because that could have some environmental impacts too and different things. So those are, I think, the biggest things that we talked about. So yeah.
I'm going to jump in just to piggyback on that about the CML.
Oh, right. Yeah.
There was one, I attended the CML executive board meeting on February 24th, and it was very interesting. And I just wanted to piggyback on that because there's one somewhat controversial bill coming forward, review and discussion of one of the bills. It's House Bill 23-1190. And it's the right of first refusal for local governments for multifamily properties, or it's also called the affordable housing right of first refusal. And the bill creates a right of first refusal for a local government to match an acceptable offer for the sale of a residential or mixed-use property. And the right to purchase the property by the local government is subject to the local government's commitment to using it as long-term affordable housing. It's scheduled for the first reading on February 28th. And it is, CML is backing it with, they've included a couple of provisions. And some of the most important ones are basically providing an opt-out provision for local governments if they want it. And the second is clarifying that the right of first refusal is an opportunity for a local government to make an offer that is acceptable to the seller, and the offer must be economically identical to the offer that has been made. So again, CML does support it. Their statement in this regard is that the league supports an adequate supply of diverse housing options, regardless of income level, and continued public and private sector support for such an effort. However, I want council to know that this was definitely did not pass the CML executive board without a lot of discussion. And there's definitely two sides to this issue. There were definitely the members that spoke that this, in their belief, that this was definitely an unnecessary infringement on private property rights. And some are saying that the bill should be totally opposed unless it is changed to say that it is notification only to the city, such that that transactions are occurring, not a right of first refusal. So it's interesting, but I wanted you to know that CML is supporting that with these provisions, and CCI is actually seeking clarifications on the bill. They have not yet supported it. So I wanted you to be aware of that.
When CML presented that at it was also heavily talked about and I think supported if amended, but they were waiting for that. And then wait, one more thing I forgot to mention is the new state housing programs, which I know Eva is keeping an eye out because she sent numerous emails about, but there was a big presentation about that. The first round comes out this month, and then the second round is going to be coming out April or May, and we have to opt in by choosing or getting our baseline numbers set up and stuff. So anyway, so it's a ton of money getting ready to come out with Prop 123. And that's exciting. And I know Eva's on it because we've gotten all those emails, but that was interesting too.
I had one little update on the multimodal advisory board on February 15th. It's very short because they spend most of the time talking about the dissolution of that board as well. And the other part was the survey that they did for transit.
Great. And I participated as the liaison to the Infrastructure Advisory Board meeting, which was last week. We talked significantly about the rate study. And you'll recall that they really, the company that worked on that sought council's input. The balance between affordability in this community, as well as securing funds for what might capital improvement projects, as well as an equitable distribution of resources or an equitable charge for some of our utilities. And it came back that it was a complicated, different options. And it would take a fair bit to actually work through the communication of how to explain that. But I was really struck by the fact, and that was news to me in the study, that the company Willdan's would not, their recommendation was not to even implement any change in the rate structure until January of 2024. So I certainly appreciate we've postpone that, bringing it back for them to have a little more consideration. And also I think for staff and Willdan's to do some more thinking along that matter. So I know that will be coming up, but there's not the same urgency that there seemed to have been when we're trying to possibly implement any rate change with the coming the 1-year anniversary of our reduction in water rates. So right now I don't see any unless you're coming back to us with something different, I don't see any change right for the immediate future. That's correct. Yes, good. That's the reports. We are now at item 15.1, which is to go into an executive session, and I will read this. And then I will need to have someone to make a motion, if there's support for this, reading the exact same language. So this is an executive session for discussion and possible action concerning a motion to convene in executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, sale, or transfer of an interest in real property located in downtown Durango that is currently leased to the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad Company for parking, and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation and direct negotiators as permitted by CRS 246402 4A and E. Is there a motion?
I'll move to go into executive session for discussion and possible action concerning a motion to convene an executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, sale, or transfer of an interest in real property located in downtown Durango that is currently leased to the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad Company for parking, and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation and direct negotiators as permitted by CRS 24-6-402 4A and E.
I'll second. Is there any discussion? May we have the vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Youssef.
Yes.
Counselor Buell.
Yes.
Counselor Bosman,
Yes.
Baxter, Mayor Noseworthy.
Yes, thank you. We will now go into executive session.
Sounds good. Safe travels. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Yep, you guys go home.
I think that sounds great. Oh, absolutely.
Hey, Faye. Okay, I don't seem to have the link. I know you sent it the other day and I've lost it. The link for the executive session. Okay, thanks.
Recording in progress.
Hello, Bill, can you hear us and see us?
I can hear you and see you.
Hey, Bill, this is the host for the other meeting. Can you mute your mic while you're in session, please?
Sure. I don't know where the background noise came from.
Nick, do you want me to kick him out of this meeting and then he can rejoin?
Regular meeting. Then just leave the executive session one open.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hey, Nick, we muted him on this end. I think he's good. Or nope, he left.
No, I accidentally removed him because I was like, oh, I can do that.
We double muted him.
let's get Bill back on here.
And we'll be recording.
Nope. Oops, somebody else has joined. There he is.
Can you promote Bill to panelist, please?
Hey, Bill, can you hear us?
He did. Yeah.
Great, thank you. The time is now 8:04 and the executive session has concluded. The participants in the executive session were Olivier Bosmans, Jessica Buell, Melissa Youssef, Barbara Noseworthy, Bill Tuthill, Aaron Hyder, and Jose Madrigal. For the record, council met in executive session for discussion and possible action concerning a motion to convene an executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, sale, or transfer of an interest in real property located in downtown Durango that is currently leased to the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad for parking, and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation and direct negotiations as permitted by CRS 24-6-402 4A and E. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Seeing none, we will move on to the next item. Let me do say before we move on to that no actions were taken. This was to provide direction, and any formal action will come back to council at a future date. Now we need to move into the next session. This is I will read the description, and I will need anyone who makes a motion to read it exactly as written. Discussion and possible action concerning a motion to convene an executive session to receive legal advice regarding the lawsuit filed by John Simpson, case number 22 CV 30112, as permitted in CRS 24-6-402 4B. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for discussion and possible action concerning a motion to convene an executive session to receive legal advice regarding the lawsuit filed by John Simpson, case number 22 CV 30112, as permitted in CRS 24-6-402 4B.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? May we have the vote call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Youssef,
Yes.
Councilor Buell.
Yes.
Councilor Baxter, Councilor Bosman's,
Yes.
and Mayor Noseworthy.
Yes, we will now go into executive session. Thank you.
And Faye, Nick Poppy's going to join us on this, isn't he?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Tuthill.
Bill's back. You waiting for the other attorney also?
Mayor, I don't know if Nick's coming back or not.
All right, and that's fine. We've had situations before where other council members or attendees have had to leave. Thank you. We'll reconvene now. I can't see the clock. I'm sorry. Is it 8?
8:40.
Okay. The time is now 8:40 and the executive session has concluded. The participants in the executive session were Olivier Bosmans, Jessica Buell, myself, Barbara Noseworthy, Melissa Youssef, Jose Madrigal, Bill Tuthill, Cynthia Sneed, and Nicholas Poppy. For the record, council met in executive session for discussion and possible action concerning a motion to convene an executive session to receive legal advice regarding the lawsuit filed by John Simpson, case number 22 CV 30112, as permitted in CRS 24-6 4024B. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meeting laws, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is to adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Apples. Yeah.